This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we have one of my favorite people in the whole world with me tonight, one of the great state senators in the state, and a very popular one, and my cousin, truthfully, Senator Will Barfoot, a Republican from Pike Road, who represents all of Pike Road and that eastern part of Montgomery County, and he represents all of Crenshaw County. Y'all folks in Crenshaw love old Will. And he got some of Autauga and Elmore. You don't have Elmore, do you?
I've got Elmore, but not Autauga.
I'm sorry, I get it confused. Shamus has got all of Autauga, doesn't he?
He does. I believe he's got all of Autauga, and of course he comes into Elmore, and he's got a couple of the counties as well.
Will's a regular on my show, y'all. Because I tell you how antiquated I am. I started this show 15 years ago, and we filmed it here at the Rosa Parks building in downtown Montgomery, and I assumed that my viewing audience was River Region and Wiregrass, which is Troy University's public television audience. But technology has changed such that I'll see somebody in Huntsville and they'll say, I saw your show with Will Barfoot. And I say, and then in Birmingham somebody say, I saw Senator Will Barfoot on your show, or Governor Ivey, whoever's on there. I said, well, how do you see it? I mean, it's YouTube. Everything's YouTube now. And so when we're to get through this, it'll be all over the state. And you'll have people from Huntsville say, I saw you on Flowers Show on YouTube.
Well, when they see me out in public, they'll say, I saw Steve. So you're known statewide.
Well, I'll tell you what, we really are cousins, y'all. I've always known we can. But Will, what got you? He had really done the homework. I got a text from him during the holidays. And, our families are right there from the same area. My mama's people from Grants from China Grove in northern Pike County, Orion. His people, he's one of the true original Pike Road people. There ain't very few of those, but he was right. If you look at a map, they're the same place.
Yeah.
Like with my ancestor that we're talking about, but we have the same great-great-great-grandmama. What's her name? Nancy something?
I can't remember. You're right, though. So I got to looking at that. So quick story about that.
What got you into that? How'd you get into it?
Senator Sam Gavan mentioned to me here a couple months ago. He said, tell me, somebody you related to that's passed on, tell me your granddaddy's name. So I told him and asked why he wanted that information. He said, well, I've got this free app that I've downloaded. And he said, I think it's pretty accurate. And so he ran, family tree for us and distant kin. And so I thought, well, that's pretty neat. And then I got on there and started playing around with it. And I said, I'm going to find out. I said, I'm going to find out from Steve exactly how we're related. Now, as we sit here now, I'm not sure I can explain it. But we're close enough kin that we can claim each other when we want to, and distant enough to where you don't have to claim me when you don't want to.
You sent me that, and I finally got around to doing it. But I don't know how to do things on a computer, so I went down and got an old family Bible. Somebody had really done a lot of work, and because you asked me about this, and I said, let me tell you, and I got looking at them, and then when you sent me that tree, we saw this same lady who was our same common great-great-great-grandmama.
Right, from that area.
Nancy something. Yeah. I wish I could think of that, but she was in that something. And her husband was John Oliver Grant, and he wrote the most interesting narrative about the Civil War you've ever seen. He says that he and his uncle, Isaac Broxton, that was her name.
That's
maybe.
right.
That's what it was. He was married to Nancy. Her name was Nancy Broxton. Our great ancestor was. And anyway, the Grants didn't talk much, and you can tell from his narrative, he didn't tell much about the Civil War. He says, me and my father-in-law, Isaac Broxton, the Montgomery Cavalry, came to China Grove, and we joined the Montgomery Cavalry. And me and my father-in-law, Isaac Broxton, had our own horses. So we joined the Montgomery Cavalry, went off. Said we fought in Tennessee, fought in Chickamauga, and then we went over here, and I got captured by the Yankees. They put me in the Mississippi prison camp, that big prison camp. He says, I stayed there for a year. The war got over. I came back home to China Grove.
He wrapped up 4 or 5 years worth of history in about 2 sentences.
It's like, did you shoot anybody, or did anybody shoot you, or what?
Right.
What they do to you in the Yankee prison? That sort of thing. Anyway, it was so interesting. But that was her husband.
That's right. It was Broxton. That's exactly.
I didn't mean to get off on all that, but I love talking about that stuff with you because your class has come into fruition. That's a heck of a class. I love that class. You and Gudger were sweet mates.
That's right.
Y'all let me be y'all sweet mate buddy.
Yeah. We always enjoyed when you'd come in and enlighten us on the history of Alabama politics. So
Gudger was your sweet mate, your best friend. Now he's gonna be pro tem, taking Greg Reed's place.
I know he's up to the challenge. It is a challenge. I don't care who you are, but I know he's up to it. We were fortunate in the Senate Republican caucus when we had our meetings and discussions to have 2 really qualified and good candidates to put their names forward, and I look forward to supporting Senator Gudger. And I think the state of Alabama we'll see some very good things that are coming up from this session.
Now, did you come in 18 or 14?
18.
So you've been there. This is your 3rd term then?
No, I'm 18 and then reelected in 22.
Y'all running 2026. That's right. Yeah, 2026. Will, who all's in that class? Is you, Roberts, Gudger, your buddy Gavan. You and Gavan must be pretty good buddies.
Sure, yep, that's right.
Yeah,
And then you've got Senator Elliott from down in Baldwin County.
Right.
You've got Senator Price from over in Lee County.
Oh, you had some transfer from the House. Chastain?
Chastain did. Senator Jones came in as a freshman with me, Andrew Jones from
that's
Etowah
right,
County. You've got Senator Chastain, Senator Sessions was a transfer, moved up from the House, and then also Jack Williams, who, as you know, is going to be running for Ag Commissioner, and I think we'll do a good job with that. So.
Y'all had a pretty good class.
We did. A lot of big turnover. And then, even last year or 2 years ago, the new quadrennium that we're in now, there were 4 new members in the Senate. So there is a lot of turnover. And quite honestly, the one thing that I really was an advocate for several years back was term limits. And I still think that's a valuable thing for term limits. But in the state of Alabama, we've got so much turnover. I mean, you think about it. I think there were a total of 9 or 10 people total in my class, another 4 at least Republicans, and so that's 14. And then since then, we've had Senator Weaver, who took Senator Ward's spot, Cam Ward's spot.
She's sort of halfway in y'all's class.
That's right. So pretty close to half of the Senate is different now than it was just 6 years ago. So there's been a lot of turnover, and I think turnover is important from the standpoint of new ideas, fresh ideas. But I also think you got to balance that with experience, and we have folks that have been there a long time, and certainly know what legislation is done in the past and the pitfalls of certain things. And so I think there's a good balance there between turnover and experience.
You lost one of your mentors, old Jimmy Holly.
I did.
Passed away.
Thought a lot of Senator Holly. We were at the.
You came down. That was so nice of you to come down for that thing.
He was a true gentleman, and
all y'all wanted to sit by him so you could learn the rules.
That's exactly right. I just wish I'd have been able to sit by him a little longer.
Now Shannon sat by him too, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. Of course, Senator Chastain and Senator Holly, I think, were very close. And
well, they had the same region,
That's right.
They overlapped and everything. Hey, Will, how many came in your class in 2018 total, if you count the House?
Count the House members, let's see.
11 about, wasn't it? 10 or 11? Or 9 anyway.
Yeah, I think there was at least 10, maybe 11.
What caused so much turnover? Is people quitting or what was it?
Yeah, you had a couple of open seats that came up, and then you had some pretty hard-fought races. I was in a pretty hard-fought race. Senator Gudger was. Senator Gavan was.
Did you beat an incumbent?
No, it was an open seat.
Yeah, Brubaker left that seat.
He did. That's right.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And then you had, but you had quite a few people that just left on their own fruition. Just said, "Hey, I've done my service, and I'm going to leave," and created some vacancies. And then you had a couple others that Senator Gudger had ran against an incumbent and won.
That's right. So, now, and somebody won by 1 vote or something. Hovey, last time won by 1 vote. And that over in Lee County District in Tallapoosa. But we'll go back to this. Let's get to session a little bit because we don't have a lot of time. I don't see much controversy in this session. You
Well,
got the budgets. I think that Garrett and Arthur Orr, back to one thing, you know, you talk about term limits, but it really is advantageous to have Arthur Orr writing the budget because he's been doing it for a decade now, so he knows what he's doing.
Wisdom and experience does count, that's for sure.
It really does, and he does a good job with that.
Yeah.
And that's where I was going with this thing, is the most important and not really the only constitutional mandate y'all have during this upcoming session is to pass both budgets, education and general fund budget. And y'all have had a lot of COVID money, but y'all were wise and very prudent not to budget that for long term.
Yeah.
So y'all are not going to be in as bad a shape as a lot of other states.
Yeah, I think the philosophy that we had, you know, in the legislature as a whole was, let's use this money for one-time projects that we can fund, and instead of putting it in the system where people grow to become expectant of it, and then when that money runs out, then we've got problems. So I think we did a good job, fairly good job of that. You know, as far as the budgets themselves, I mean, we've been pretty conservative in the budgeting approach, although the budgets have continued to grow. We've been pretty conservative, so much though that you know, the Choose Act that we passed last year was a pretty big deal. We also were the first in the nation, my understanding, to do away of taxing overtime, which I think is a huge deal and is going to be coming back up. We actually sunset that provision. We didn't know how much that was going to affect state coffers. We anticipated it was somewhere around 30 million. It wound up being about 5 or 6x that, so 5 or 6 times
that much.
So, but my position on that is that folks out there that are working their rear ends off more than 40 hours a week, we need to give them a break. And so I'm hopeful that we'll see that extended. So we were able to cap property taxes at a percentage. So we've done some pretty conservative things and cap taxes and give back money. But the reason I think we've been able to do that is because, number one, it's a robust economy. It has been. There has been some federal money that comes in. But the men and women of Alabama work diligently and hard, and that produces taxes. And when we're able to give that tax money back to those folks, they can reinvest it in their businesses. So,
Will, what other issues besides the budget stuff do you think are going to be a hot ticket?
yeah, I think if you look back on this session, at the end of the session, you look back, for sure one of the top 5 and maybe one of the top 3 things is going to be public safety.
That's what I was getting around to. I was going to ask you about, because it really, I think that's being instigated by, in all honesty, your area here, you don't represent Montgomery, but you do have some part of Montgomery.
Right.
But Montgomery and Birmingham have become alarming to the state. I know you're a Montgomeryan or Pike Road, but the Montgomery crime and the Birmingham homicide rates are alarming to everybody in the state.
Yeah, you know, for communities to thrive and certainly even survive, folks have got to feel like they're safe, and they got to feel like the kids are well educated. And you know, there's certainly room to do better across the state, and we want to try to tackle that on the public safety side. I think what you'll see is several bills. I know the Speaker and his office and House members, they will have a plethora of bills that involve public safety. I think certainly you'll see a Glock switch type of thing mirrors the federal law, not creating new law on the state level, but rather adopting what federal law is as it relates to those fully automatic switches that are capable of being put on a firearm, make it fully automatic. And some people would say, well, why do we need that at the state level if it's already against the law on the federal side of the equation? But a Montgomery police officer or pick a county or a law enforcement officer throughout the state, when they pull somebody over and they have this Glock switch type of addition to the firearm, they can't arrest them on a federal statute. Very few circumstances.
That's right. You got to be an FBI agent.
That's right. Or you have to have an agreement, some kind of a understanding, working on a task force of some kind with the federal government. So because they can't arrest them on the federal statute. So a state statute that mirrors is not more expansive, but mirrors what the federal law do. I think you'll see that, and then I think you'll see too. A couple of years ago we passed, and then ultimately it was a constitutional amendment on a Nye law. Young lady was brutally abducted and murdered over in Auburn, and that Nye law from a couple of years ago. Before that, only capital murder cases were cases that you couldn't bond out on, or there was a possibility that it was a no bond on capital murder cases. We, by statute, and then the people by vote of the people, actually expanded those list of crimes that a judge could consider for putting a no bond on them, and a process to do that. And so I think what you'll see is maybe us look at that to see if that needs to be tweaked, or some crimes that may have been needed to add to the Anais law, and a whole host of other public safety bills that I think are supportive of law enforcement, because we've got a real problem, and not just Montgomery or the Alabama, but throughout the nation. You know this because of our conversations and family history, but my daddy was a policeman, uncle policeman, and two other uncles that were troopers. Right. And those folks do a job that a lot of times we don't see the impact, and folks are not going into law enforcement like they used to, and why would they when they have the fear of being shot, hurt, killed, prosecuted. And so we need to do something that we're supportive, show them we're supportive of law enforcement folks, as well as the public safety side of that equation.
Well, how do you do that? What do you raise the income, or when you say to get more people to join law enforcement? I know the community college system has created a really good program for prison guards, and having it at Jeff State and Reed State to give them and they're going to raise their salaries too. Because that's one of the things the courts have said about that is causing some of the problems in the prisons, is you can't get prison guards. It's a very dangerous job.
Yeah.
But how do you specifically do that? Do you pass state funds to give? You only give troopers the salary increase, or what?
Yeah. So I'll tell you this just from a big picture. I'm not sure. I mean, certainly everybody. That is a individual in law enforcement probably need to be paid more than they are. So again, with a family background, but I'm not sure that's the real detriment to why we're having what we're having. I think if you look around the nation and certainly some places in Montgomery, when you have leadership that is not supportive of law enforcement, I think that trickles down. I think people that say, hey, why would I go to this department or that department if I don't have the support from up above? Now, there's a new chief. It's no longer an interim chief in Montgomery, Chief Grayboys, and I understand he's doing a good job of trying to turn the momentum around in Montgomery. That, along with the interaction with Chief Cunningham, the sheriff's office, and how they've been able to get in patrolling the streets and work with MPD, and along with Aaliyah, has provided a lot of resources. So I think we'll find ways to, at least on paper, to make it more plausible and feasible for folks to get into law enforcement and stay there.
You bring up a good point about that, and I think you having that family background and knowing this, you bring up an excellent point. The top leadership, who is chief of police, is really makes a difference. At the top of the ticket.
It does.
And it gives a momentum to everybody. And the good example is here in Montgomery. If you look at wherever Derek Cunningham is going, it's a whole different complexion on law enforcement. He's very, very successful. One of the most successful sheriffs in the state of Alabama is Derek Cunningham.
Sheriff Cunningham has done a great job in my estimation, and from folks that know better than I do have echoed that same thing. And I will tell you this though, and just and I've used this analogy before. I think you could have a General George Patton type, right? That was a police chief or in a position of authority in law enforcement. But if the individual above him or her does not allow them to do their job, then you don't get the same result. So it's not just within the law enforcement community. Right. I think you need to make sure that you have somebody who is capable and willing to do the hard stuff and support their law enforcement folks, but you got to have somebody above that allows them to do their job.
The mayor, for example, what you're going to too is it got so bad here in Montgomery. I don't know whether it's tapered off some now, but you and Greg Reed, especially Greg, Reed Ingram. Reed Ingram, your counterpart in the House at Pike Road, said, "Look, this is going to spill over into our community, and we're going to let the state. Is there some talk of having a LEA task force? Is that going to be part of the program? It say, look, if a city gets this kind of crime rate going, and the city fathers are not going to take care of it, we're going to have to send a LEA in. Is that
Well,
where some of this is going to go?
Well, certainly right now, Aaliyah has been working with the Montgomery Police Department and the Sheriff's Department. So that is currently happening and has been for the last several months. And I think you've seen
the curtailment.
I think so. I mean, certainly doesn't wipe out everything, but when the bad guys know that the good guys are out there in numbers and they're looking at them, that's got to slow things down. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue that, and that'll be, I'm sure, a piece.
So you already have a LEA doing some work here in Montgomery.
Yes, some of the resources.
So you don't need legislation to that effect. I mean,
Well,
what is was something like the part of that task force going to be created or something?
Yeah, but you still have a drain on a LEA whenever they're putting resources here at one specific place, right? I mean,
so you put more money into a LEA for the task force.
Well, I think that is a possibility that we'll look at. So.
Now, also change the subject of. Looks like a lot of the issues that are going to be addressed are going to be piggyback issues on what President Trump is doing on the federal level. There's going to be some issues on immigration. How does that affect Alabama? Why aren't we doing things for immigration in Alabama?
Yeah, I haven't seen any specific bills that have been drafted, but I know Senator Weaver, Senator Bell, and Senator Elliott, among others, I think Senator Kitchens maybe as well, went to the border here several months ago, have been to different meetings and conversations about, at least at that time, prior to the general election for president, what we could do in Alabama. I think we've pivoted a little bit because it's no longer the things that we maybe have to do to protect ourselves, but rather the things that we need to do in Alabama to supplement or help the federal government with what they're doing. So I think you've seen a little bit of a change. We'll see what those legislation looks like, but we certainly want Alabama to be responsive. I know we will at the state level, and I'm hopeful the local communities will be, to work with the federal government in attempting to carry out the policies of President Trump.
What about there's some issue talk about election integrity? What do you see doing with electioning?
I don't know specifically. I think there'll be some legislation out there. Currently, we passed a ballot harvesting bill. Senator Gudger was the sponsor of that last session. And so that's always something that we need to continue to look at, and I think others have been doing that and looking forward to looking at it.
You handled an Alabama DEI bill. Talk about that some last year. You passed that. It passed, didn't it?
It did. So let me give credit where credit's due. Representative Ed Oliver over from Tallapoosa County really put a lot of heart, soul, and sweat equity into that. I just happened to get the credit on the Senate side of the equation for having carrying the bill that passed. I think the sky's falling mentality from those who were against it is proven not to be true. I won't say a whole lot about it now because it's in litigation. I'm not a named defendant in that, but I'll just say I think we accomplished what we tried to accomplish. And we'd say, hey, listen, people should be judged on who they are, and not the color of their skin. We shouldn't teach in classrooms that you're better than somebody because of the color of your skin or your race, or worse than. And quite honestly, I've said to those naysayers, some of them who I know personally have come to me and said, well, how could you pass this terrible bill? I said, well, tell me what line you didn't like about it. That's why I hadn't read it. I saw something in the newspaper. I said, do me a favor, go back and read it, and then tell me what you don't like. And there have been a couple of them that come back and said, well, I didn't realize that this is what it said in there, and I'm not against it anymore. So, it's funny how when you educate yourself on things, your opinion changes.
You know, it reminded me of a story. You wrote I've got Jebbo Wagner's biography coming out. We're going to have a big thing for him, and he loves you and you love him. But you wrote a good tribute. I didn't get everybody to write a tribute. You wrote a good one. But one of the best ones was written by a former representative from Vestavia named Jack Williams, who had Vestavia in the House for about 8 years. And you come home and some constituent will berate you about how you voted on some bill, And he was getting berated by this guy two or three different times, different people. Every time he'd be berated, he said, why did you vote that way? I don't know, Senator Wagner voted that way. Oh, I'm sorry.
Made it okay, did
Yeah,
it?
made it okay.
Yeah.
Then. That's one of the funniest tributes
Yeah.
in the whole thing. Speaking of that, I love Crenshaw County because it's a neighboring county. Do you get down there much and visit them? They love you. You got about 80% of the vote there, didn't you?
Did right at it. I think great and wonderful people, and I say this. I mean, you know, I'm fortunate. Listen, throughout the state, from Mobile all the way up to Huntsville, there's great folks, but I'm fortunate to represent the best folks in the state of Alabama. And you know, not to belittle anybody from any of the other counties, but Crenshaw County's been really good to me. The folks
I knew they
down
loved
there,
you there.
well, they have.
You worked
been,
it hard.
Well, we did, and we had some good folks that were helping us. I mean, Tom Perdue was an asset, and not only that, he's a friend, and has become over the past 6 or 7 years. Folks in Crenshaw County, to me, feels to me like Pike Road back when I was just a little boy. I don't know. It's just there's some good folks.
Where do you eat? Do you chicken sack when you go down there?
Quite often, you can look. You can look at this and tell me I'm a fan of the.
You know that chicken shack. That's where I plan my itinerary. Sometimes if I ever go to the beach, I always go that. That's my route from Troy through Luverne. I'll take that 330, whatever it is, 331, and I always plan, and my daughters do too, to stop at the chicken shack. But I'm not the only one. I hear people all over the state stop at that chicken shack. They have got the best meat and three vegetables.
It's very good. You can't go wrong in anything you get there. That's
You really can't. They really do have the best chickens. Yeah. Now, I always want to call you, and I forget to do it when I'm passing through there recently. They're building something over there on the side. Is that part of something you got done, or what is that? What's that going to happen when you head down the road right past the chicken shack between
heading south
to Brantley, past Brantley, I believe.
Right between Luverne and Brantley, there's a sports complex on the right-hand side.
Okay, so it's not a road, it's a sports complex.
Sports complex will have.
That's going to be a big thing.
It is going to be a big thing, and I think it'll be a good draw for Crenshaw County. Several different baseball fields, softball fields. I think eventually, potentially, some soccer fields and maybe track, and then certainly we need some other infrastructure around it. But they've done a good job of starting, and quite honest, it's been a couple months since I've seen it.
It looks like a big old road or something going to be built over.
Yep.
It's going to be it's not a county-wide project.
It is.
Brantley and Luverne, everybody uses it.
Everybody for the county. That's right. Good draw for folks, and good. I mean, that's the sense of quality of life for those folks, and then economic development too. You can bring in some of the travel ball folks and in there. So.
They eat the chicken shack.
That's right. That's exactly.
Well, our time's up, folks. Our guest tonight's been Senator Will Barfoot from Pike Road, and represents Montgomery County, Crenshaw County, and part of Elmore County. We thank him for taking time out of his busy schedule. The session starts next week, and he'll be busy. He's chairman of the Judiciary, so he'll have a lot of bills to handle in the state Senate. But we thank him again, and we appreciate him coming on the show. We thank you, viewers, for watching. Hope you tune in again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.